Welcome to TechTO Quick Takes. I'm your host, Jason Goldlist, and today we are broadcasting this week's episode live on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. As always, we want to hear from you. So drop us a comment, share us a like, just send us your feedback wherever you're watching or listening, and let us know your takes. You can also listen later on the TechTO Quick Takes podcast. That's available wherever you like to listen to podcasts. It's Thursday, May 19th, and today we're talking about TaskTop gets purchased to consolidate the digital transformation industry. Accessibility pays off for Fable. Forma AI proves that AI can help incentivize salespeople. Round 13 launches the Digital Asset Market Fund, and ChargeLab raises $15 million USD thanks to a pivot. Let's get started. First up, TaskTop gets purchased to consolidate the digital transformation industry. Alex, what is a digital transformation industry?
Very good question. It sounds like consultant speak. It sounds like Gartner report speak, and I think it is. It's basically a fancy way to see the tools and technology to help large enterprise digitize their business.
Okay, now I wanted to say gets acquired, and you wouldn't let me say gets acquired. You wanted to write was purchased. Why did you want to say purchased?
Well, we'll get into what this purchase means here. But this company was not sold. It was purchased. It was bought. If you go to what happened here, there's an 8-year relationship with TaskTop and PlanView working together. And I think that resulted in a champion at PlanView saying, hey, we've been given a green light to go do acquisitions. We know these guys. I'm going to pound a table and buy them. So this was not something that, TaskTop woke up one morning saying, let's go run a sales process. They were purchased by a partner of 8 years.
And do we have any details on the purchase or on the deal?
Well, the details weren't provided. So we don't know how good of a deal it was, what the purchase price was. But I think for multiple reasons, you can believe that it was generous, that everyone did well, and they chose not to release the data. Now, what's more interesting to me is why we believe this company was purchased and what the rationale for it could be.
So I want to know. Give me your rationale.
So, you're looking at this company. So let's be clear. PlanView is owned by 2 private equity firms. They were acquired by another private equity firm for $1.6 billion about 2 years ago. So private equity firms, when they acquire a company, they make money in one of 2 ways. It's either through financial engineering or through improving the overall operations and bottom line. I think financial engineering is much harder to do when interest rates are low. And when you buy when 2 private equity firms are buying from one private equity firm, probably all financial engineering has been done. So you've got these 2 private equity firms own PlanView. They're looking to improve results. One classic way to do it is to consolidate an industry. And, when you purchase a competitor adjacent company, it lets you improve revenues, because in this case, it's an adjacent industry. So, hey, we can now sell more to the same customer while removing costs from the business. You don't need 2 CFOs. You don't need 2 salespersons to cover one. So this seems like it's a strategic purchase, and it gets a company that has a fair amount of size. You're talking about a company that will have $400 million revenue, 1,200 employees, and 5,000 plus enterprise customers.
Now, you always say that the best companies get purchased, not sold.
Yeah.
So what usually happens, and how is this sort of a different process?
So let's say when your company's being bought, like acquired, it's very rare that an acquired company wakes up in the morning going, hey, we need a strategic purchase. Let's go find the best company and acquire it. So what's usually happening, an acquisition or a purchase is being done by someone that's basically saying, this is important to me. This is going to be strategic. It's going to improve my business. And if you just met if you're the person that's in charge of banging the table for an acquisition, if you just met a company a couple of months ago, no matter what diligence you did, your level of confidence probably is not as high as someone you've known for 6-7 years. So you're probably paying them a lower price. You can put more terms on the purchase. So what happens, the best companies that get bought is they're either well-known in the industry to be an excellent company and a strategic asset, or they have a lot of partners they've been talking for a while. Maybe they're actual partners you've done business with. Maybe it's just companies they catch up with. But there's usually a relationship and understanding and trust between the acquiring company and the purchase and the company they're buying. Now, flip side, if you're being sold, let's say you say, okay, we have 5 months runway left. Or I'm the founder, I have no desire to do this now. You start knocking on doors and you hire a bunch of investment bankers and you get a bake off. You'll get interest, but there's no way. It's going to be very hard for the 2 or 3 people sponsoring this acquisition to pay top price to put their career at risk for someone they don't know as well.
It's like
And
buying a used car. There's information
yeah,
asymmetry in that case, and so there's a premium that has to be done, which is why I love it. The best companies get bought, not sold. They're not marketed. They know each other. Who's the winner in this deal? Who could have won? Who could have made some
well,
cash? Who set up well for the future?
again, without having any details of the terms, I think everyone's actually done pretty well from this deal. This deal feels like one because again, difference between being sold versus bought. Sold, you sort of take the best price, you wipe your hands clean, you're done. Here, I feel you've got a company in Tasktop that basically raised money, not that long ago, probably had a lot of runway and had to have a very generous offer that made a lot more sense, either an immediate upside or long-term upside, because a combined entity could be more valuable.
Yeah.
So I think Tasktop and its investors made it off well. PlanView probably made a purchase they've used very strategic, and eventually the PE firms that own PlanView have done well. Now, I hope the employees did well without knowing either company really well. I don't know if there's a good incentive plan. I don't know if there's good options. But this feels like a deal where there's a lot of winners.
I love that. I love deals with when everyone wins together. So give me a summary. If you're listening, you're part of the TechTO community. It's your first time hearing of TaskTop. It's your first time hearing of PlanView. You never knew that the best companies got bought, not sold. What can you take away for your startup and your technology company? What can you learn from this deal?
Well, I think we've already banged it that you want to be bought and not sold. So I think the key thing here is start building relationships with potential acquirers early on. Not saying, hey, you want to sell, but you're better off knowing your competitors. You're better off knowing your potential partners. And there's a lot of fear in founders, and there's a lot of VC firms that'll say, don't do that. But like, it is better to have those relationships, because at worst comes to worst, you have champions that you can do partnerships with, or maybe people that go to other companies that you can do partnerships with. There's, spend the time to get to know the people in your industry. And I think that's a key takeaway here. And second of all, if you want to be sell to enterprises, have a sexy industry like digital transformations.
Oh yeah.
Like I'm reading about these companies, and I feel like this was written by a consultant and partnered with Gartner, and there's a lot of money made just to be naming this industry.
That's right. If you don't have a magic quadrant named after your industry, you're doing it all wrong. Yeah, I love it. Hey, if you're looking for more insights on what's happening in the digital strategic transformation industry, or just the Canadian tech ecosystem in general, more likely the Canadian tech ecosystem in general, you've got to subscribe to our TechTO newsletter. Alex, give us a sneak peek into what we can expect in our inboxes tomorrow.
Well, it's actually what I'm most excited for. I think it's a long weekend this weekend. I'm never sure. I've been told my kids will be home on Monday. So hopefully that means I have some downtime, and there's going to be lots of recommended media to read, to consume. And I'm looking forward to actually getting some interesting articles or insights. I'd say what else I'm looking to is beyond our newsletter is we've started dropping some new podcasts for our list. I think there's a 3 Commas podcast being dropped soon, and you'll have a Rocket Ship 2022 podcast. So look out for that. Learn about these great billion-dollar companies and how they got there, or learn about the cultures of companies that you may want to work for.
I love that. And all that will be in the newsletter, right?
Yes.
So you got to subscribe at techtio.org/newsletter. All right, next up, accessibility pays off for Fable. Okay, let's start with the payoff. What's the payoff here?
Wow. Usually, I thought we were trying to bury the raises. Fable announced a new round yesterday, or this week, at 10.5 million USD, led by 5 Elms Capital. So they seem to be doing well. The company has revenues in the 7-figure range, so they haven't disclosed exactly how much, with customers like Microsoft, Slack, Shopify, Walmart, and Meta. So big enterprises want Fable are Fable's customers. It's enabling to continue growing by raising capital.
Okay, so now let's talk about Fable. If it's your first time hearing of Fable, I think you're behind the times. What does Fable do?
So Fable helps companies make their sites more accessible. Now, historically, when companies make the website, their apps more accessible, they use a bunch of tools and standard procedures, and they don't really consider that, accessibility in the design phase. What Fable does is they offer basically a marketplace that helps you find the people that you want to make the site accessible to and gets them involved in the design process who they provide feedback. So from day one, you can basically build your products with accessibility in mind. What they're going to be releasing soon or just recently released is a bunch of videos and the tutorials on how you can think about the process and how you can do this without, I guess, if you can't afford to access your marketplace.
Right.
So it's basically bringing experts to come and comment on your design, your process, your different diversity of opinions and insights on how to build your products.
How big do you think the market for internet accessibility is?
Well, according to some research out there, a large portion of the population has a hard time interacting, accessing internet and mobile websites. These are people, you naturally think about people that are hearing or visually impaired, but people who've had a stroke, the elderly, people with Parkinson's all have trouble. So the estimate's about 15% of the population.
Wow. Okay. So it's a big market out there. And so far, I mean, it seems like they've got some real traction here. Are you impressed with the numbers that you've seen and the traction that you've seen from an outsider's perspective here?
So I'm impressed with what I've seen so far. The next question I usually ask is, can this be venture scale? Can this be a fabled unicorn for Fable? So love the execution, love the problem they're solving. I'm not sure. It's a marketplace. I'm not sure if those revenues are the GMV or that's their take.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're talking about some really big early adopter enterprises. Again, don't know how many customers have, don't know exact revenues, but my feeling is the revenues, the revenue per enterprise is six figures, probably low to mid. So if I were to do back of the envelope math and thinking what the margins could be, because if this is GMV, their margins are great. Even if I don't think it's a 80%, 90% software type margins. I think it's going to be very hard for them to get to venture scale.
Got it. Well, I guess a lot of these services they might be able to bring in house and actually capture some of the margin versus the take rate on the marketplace, right?
Well, I also think that tutorials via video might be a way. Hey, you record those once and you charge a subscription fee. That's nice. That's nice margin.
Yeah.
But like it pains me to say this because I think they're doing excellent work. I think it's a much needed way to change the way we interface with the internet.
Yeah.
But it's this is one of the places where as an investor you think, okay, is this a big enough market? And to a certain extent, I get that feeling too by here. 5 Elms Capital, I'm sure it's a great fund. It's based in Kansas City. I've never heard of them. There's 4,000 funds in the States. Lots of them will make great investments, but it's not like this doesn't seem like it was the one that was a lot of people were trying to get in a lead.
Trust me, 5 Elms is saying the same thing about N49P.
Oh, I'm sure, and I have no problem with that.
Makes sense. Okay, so if you're building your startup here in Canada and you're tuning into the podcast today, what are we learning from the Fable story, from the Fable?
Well, I think the first thing is look, any technology or any new trend that starts is adopted by the early adopters, and as it goes more and more mainstream, the size of all the customers that they're not serving well become huge. Like you're talking about now, basically everyone's on the internet or uses a mobile phone, so you're talking about 15% of the population. So it's what's something, people said that you're probably worried about accessibility since the start, but it was hard to pay attention to it and wasn't necessarily economically viable. I'm not talking about it's probably not even economically viable for small business, let alone, a venture scale business.
Yeah, well, 15% of everybody is a big number, but 15% of early adopters is not a big number.
When I think in the late 90s, there's 3 million people on the net, right? So even 30 million, you're talking about, not a small
we got it, Alex. You're one of the first people on the internet. We know you've been around.
I'm old. I know. Thanks, Jason. I think the second thing is when these opportunities scale, the people to solve it will not be the people that started the trend, because unfortunately they don't have the mindset. They can try to deal with it, but it's not native to them how to solve it. So I think what's interesting here is you had to have someone new take a new basically bring the inclusivity, bring a new way to get the inclusivity to solve the problem. And I bet you these solutions will be better for even people that don't have trouble accessing the internet. I think the second thing to learn here is a lot of companies start by going to SMBs to sell and then going up, right? Okay, we got SMBs, let's go to medium-sized business, let's go to enterprises. I think this company did the right thing here by targeting the mega companies. And you had to, because for them, again, 15% of their potential customers is huge. And the ROI was much easier to sell to both their customers, and probably was also good signaling to their employees. Yeah. So they have to go up, then they have to adjust their margin to go down, which is a bit harder because when you're selling SMBs and making money, going up to sell enterprises has a bunch more cost, but it's easier because you know what to do. This is going to be, I think, much more difficult way to go, but it's the way to have to go about it.
Yeah, got it. So are you recommending that folks do the time tested and true SMB up to enterprise, or do you think you just have to know when you need to go enterprise down
I
to
think
SMB?
you have to know when you go the other way, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think in this case, if you went to someone at 10,000 customers and said, "Hey, we're going to get you another 1,500,"
Yeah.
the amount they can pay is not much. But when you're talking
Yeah.
with like hundreds of millions of users on Facebook,
Yeah.
improving experience for 30 million, there's definitely an
It's
ROI.
huge. Yeah.
It's much easier.
Awesome. Well, look, Alex, some things to chat about when we continue our IRL events, because we're bringing those back. TechTO is in real life all summer long in Toronto and Vancouver. If you're in Vancouver, you got to mark your calendar for June 13th. And if you're in Toronto, you got to circle up June 21st at accessible venues, of course. So you got to come meet and mingle with the brightest minds in Canadian tech with some great food and drinks. You got to reserve your ticket at techtio.org. Alex, I know you were at a Toronto event, TechTO, last night and last week. What's it look like out there?
It looks amazing. It's nice to see people in high fidelity, real life, and interact with people. And I think, it's the side conversations that I missed, and the ability to randomly run into people or meet people I didn't know. Just fabulous. And we had 3 great chats yesterday with founders that talked about how they've emerged from this thing called the pandemic stronger than they were going in.
I love it. I love it. We heard about companies that had to do quick pivots. We heard about in the pandemic. We heard about companies that, benefited from the pandemic, that had to shut down in the pandemic. And now we've got the ones that are emerging stronger. All right. Next up, Forma AI proves that AI can help incentivize salespeople. Okay. What's so cool about Forma AI, Alex?
So we've talked about sales enablement. We've talked about AI a lot, but there seems to be 2 things Forma's doing a bit differently I haven't seen before. One is when you talk about AI, you talk about how AI just makes machines smarter. Then you get really interesting stuff where people say humans and machines are better than machines and humans. Like that's like the chess masters, diagnosing cancer in patients. But what I've never seen before, or I can't recall seeing, is using AI to incentivize humans. So what Forma is doing is they have used AI to get the most optimized sales incentive programs in real time to make, using real data and the company's strategic goals to incentivize salespeople to achieve the company's goals. So it's basically using AI to basically put the carrot for humans. I don't know if that's an analogy they'd want to use. And I think the second thing here is a lot of sales enablement is really making the sales process better and improving this. And there's a bunch of companies and Excel that's used historically to track commissions and track incentives. But this is an area of sales that really is underpenetrated, and there's a huge opportunity here that I haven't seen much. Like, let's actually figure out the incentive structure correctly.
And what's underpinning is the insight that the sales incentive package isn't one size fits all, that depending on your industry, your type, your pricing, the people that work for you, different amounts of incentives
I think it's all that. And I think sales at the basic level, salespeople are incentivized by their targets and how they're compensated.
Yeah.
And the bigger a company is, the more stakeholders are involved in it. There's HR, there's product, there's a strategy. And historically, these get complicated and messy. And it's a place where humans can only move so fast, and the collaboration between all these different people to make what's best for a company and gets the right incentive is hard. Yeah. So this is basically enabled collaboration better by making a better process, but also then takes real data to say, okay, we're underselling this product that actually has a better margin. So what can we do to incentivize that more? Or, so it's basically doing what does AI do? AI makes decisions cheaper and faster. And to get in sales incentive structure when we get 20 different stakeholders takes time. And so now this is able to do both.
The proof is in the pudding. Is it successful?
Looks like it. They grew revenue by 4 times in 2021.
Wow.
Their biggest competitor seems to be Excel and spreadsheets. And so they're getting customers like OpenTable, Autodesk, and other large enterprise sales companies. And they just raised a $40 million Series B led by Acme Capital.
Yeah. On one hand, you don't want to compete with Excel. On the other hand, there's so much product to be built by productizing a spreadsheet. So Pretty cool. Hey, if you're building your company and you also want your top line to grow 4 times in the pandemic, what can you learn from Forma AI?
Well, first, the opportunities, like you said, is Excel is still can be disaggregated. All these things that we use Excel for, it wasn't meant to be used for. So there's still a lot of opportunities to disaggregate Excel. So look for problems that are being solved by paper and pen or Excel, and if it's big enough, there's an easily $1 billion opportunity. I think the other thing is this is a reminder that we're still in the early days of AI and machine learning. As the technology evolves, and we'll find new ways to use it. And it's like what happened with mobile. You first start replicating what we did in internet and offline, and you have new use cases. And I think this is like one of the first cases I see. Okay, this is a really unique problem that can be solved. Couldn't really even solve, and we really didn't think about solving it before. We didn't even realize it was a problem. So use when technology doesn't stop impacting us for decades. And the other thing was, which Forma AI was in stealth for 4 years. They didn't raise money. They built the product. They didn't announce it. And, stealth seems to have gone away over the last few years. But my belief in early stage rounds, historically, you didn't want to. The only reason you announce them is either be credible with investors, credible with customers, or
Clients.
credible with employees. And I think as we see the economic conditions change and it gets a bit easier to recruit employees, the disadvantages of announcing a round are going to outweigh the advantage of raising a round, because once you announce you have round, people click followers, see what's interesting, and say, okay, we're going to find a way. There's a problem there. Let's go solve it. So I think stealth is a bit underrated. It seems a bit like people make fun of it, but I think we're going to see it come back in vogue.
I love it. Okay. You know what's cool? Having money in the bank, but not necessarily telling people about it. That's what we're going to make cool again. I love it, Alex. And if you want to learn more about what innovators are doing specifically in Canada, you got to join us for CAE Demo Day tomorrow, Friday, May 20th at 1 p.m. Eastern. You're going to learn more about all these new technologies and startups that are changing the way we stay connected. You're going to hear from emerging tech leaders on how they're discovering new ways to innovate, solve real challenges, and help us all better use and understand data. Feels like right in the Forma AI wheelhouse. We'll also be joined by some established industry leaders from CAE. That's that small $10 billion company that makes high-tech simulations. They're going to be offering tons of their own insights too. You excited, Alex?
I am.
Can't wait. I'll be there. I'll see you online tomorrow, Friday, May 20th for CAE Demo Day. All right, next we've got some quicker takes. In the funding variety, first up, round 13 launches the Digital Asset Market Fund. I call it the DAM, with $70 million USD and 2 industry veterans. What's going on here, Alex?
It's a new fund by round 13. They're going to be doing $300K to $5 million investments into projects that solve the technical problems around scalability, interoperability. Oh God, that's a nice word. And building on blockchain. So this is, we don't necessarily talk about all new funds being launched. I think there's a few things that stick out about this. First of all, round 13 seems to have a new strategy of launching multiple funds, each one based on a different stage or sector. So instead of doing one massive fund, they're doing a bunch of $50 to $100 million funds. Each has a different set of partners. So just find an interesting marketing strategy and fundraising strategy. Second thing is, it feels like we're going to another crypto winter. So don't know if this is a good thing or bad thing, because there's a lot of crypto funds out there who've raised a lot of money in the last 6 months, and all of a sudden the assets are cheap. So,
well, it depends if they kept their funds in cash or in some sort of stable coin, doesn't it?
well, I hope I'm gonna buy some UST. No, I'm just joking.
Yeah, it depends, I guess, how much they believed in their own thesis.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. The second thing you mentioned here, in this case, the thesis is not to buy crypto coins or tokens or NFTs. And
everyone wants to buy the picks and shovels, right?
Yeah, it's a picks and shovels. I actually wish they called it like digital picks and shovels instead of digital asset market fund, because it seems like when I heard that, I thought, okay, this is going to be NFTs and tokens. This is going to be crazy. So it feels a bit, off. And I don't know, for some reason, this feels like a very Canadian approach to this market, which is not a good thing or bad thing. But like, I feel in the States, you're going for 70 million, you're doing a crypto fund, you go under your own banner, you call it something that's crypto-like, not, and so just that neither here nor there, but I don't know, feels very Canadian to me.
What does it mean if you're in the TechTO community? Why do you care?
Well, I think a lot of our communities interested in Web3 is interested in building there, and here's another door that's explicitly open for the picks and shovels of the Web3. So you should know they're out there.
Call them up, get access
know,
to that capital, and put it to use.
At yesterday's FinTech event, there was a couple of people building in DeFi. So I'm sure they should be knocking around 13 because $300K to $5 million gets early on. That makes sense.
That's Bruce, right? Call up Bruce. Get the check. All right. And last up for today, Charge Lab. Charge Lab is announcing a $15 million US raise thanks to a pivot.
It's actually a couple pivots. So what they do now, they build software to manage EV charging equipment, and it can be used across a variety of charging networks. So they want to be the EV operating system. And Charge Labs feels
so
like
whether it's a Tesla supercharger or it's the Nissan Leaf or whatever, all your cars still around, they're all plugging into this, and they're the operating system.
Like I think better call it the Android of charging software.
Thanks, Doug. That's a good one.
Doug
or what's RIM's operating system called? He's more of a BlackBerry fan, isn't he?
Yeah, he used
Symbian.
Yeah.
Was there that? Yeah,
maybe that's
a Nokia one. No, I don't know.
I think they use Android now.
That's a Nokia one.
It's Opera. No. But like, what's interesting here is the company, and like they seem to have been around for a while, and I think they have. And I remember meeting in the first permutation, they were actually buying, reselling, and installing charging equipment, hardware, and software. Then they did the pivot, said, "Hey, let's just do the software, and let's sell the software to the building managers." Then they said, "Well, the building managers are one-off. We can make an operating system which we can sell to fleets and enterprises that have multiple locations." So this is a company that understood the space they want to solve the problem in, and they've done multiple pivots to get something that looks scalable and interesting. So, when they're successful, we're talking about them on our, 3 comma list in a year or two.
Do you think so?
I don't know, but I said it's always possible, right? These founders have shown, look, EV is a big space, and they've shown they have the resilience to pivot and listen to customers.
You like that? You like a good cockroach.
Yeah, I like a good cockroach. But like the point here being is, those pivots will be quickly buried away, except for when it's convenient, because most reporters will say, "Oh yeah, this is like they've been, this is a story," and they don't. Everyone forgets the journey they had to go through to find product market fit.
Thank God. I can't wait to forget. that. And so what does this pivot / raise mean for the TechTO community? Why do you care, Alex?
Well, again, if you're trying to build a venture scale business, why do they do these 2 pivots? One, both these other pivots were very competitive spaces where they had no unique advantage. And it was not clear how you either scale and or make margin. So I think sometimes you can have a good product or a good idea, but if you want to pursue venture scale and get interested, and again, not every company has to be venture scale outcome. Let's be very clear. We support people bootstrapping. We support, business that get to 10 million revenue and, make a good bottom line. But if you want to do the venture game, you may have to have a good idea, but listen to your customers and look for that unique positioning, which allows you to scale and get margin. And like operating systems to fleets and enterprises is a lot more scalable than selling to builders and installing hardware.
You're wearing your red ocean shirt. You got to find that blue ocean, right?
It's a fintech shirt.
Oh, it's a fintech. Very nice. Thanks, Alex. Holy cow. What a week in Canadian tech. As always, got to like and subscribe wherever you're watching or listening so you don't miss one episode, and you got to share your takes with us on This Week in Canadian Tech. And we'll see you shortly on the TechTO Insider Membership Program.
We're in the business of delivering impossible things. We're in the business of delivering things that nobody's ever seen before.
If you build that culture, you'll come up with really cool and innovative stuff, and literally could be in the next multi-billion-dollar idea. So this conversation is largely going to be about scaling yourself and scaling your leadership team.
I want to talk about one of the biggest struggles that I think a lot of startups face early on, which is building initial traction.